There is a place we seldom speak of, not because it is irrelevant, but because it is unbearable to articulate. It is the terrain of silence, the dim-lit corridor between thought and emotion, between who we show and who we are. This is the domain of the inner world, not the psyche as defined by diagnostic textbooks, but the felt sense of existing. The sound of your own breathing in a dark room, the ache of memories that have no language, the weight of your own presence. We live in a world obsessed with the external success metrics, attention, validation, social hierarchies, algorithms, timelines. But what of the realm that watches all of this in quiet rebellion? The part of you that knows, even when there are no witnesses. This is a journey into that forgotten domain, not to escape the world, but to return to it more whole. Chapter 1. The Mirage of the Outer Life. We are trained from birth to look outward. Grades, approval, followers, money, the signs that we are doing well. But somewhere along the way, we begin to sense a discrepancy. A quiet voice in the background asks, "Why do I feel empty, even when everything looks perfect?" The outer life is a mirage, and like all mirages, it draws us deeper into the desert, rather than offering water. The inner world, by contrast, doesn't clamor for attention. It waits, patiently, silently, sometimes painfully. We suffer not because we have failed externally, but because we have starved internally. We have not fed the deeper parts of us. Chapter 2. The inner world has no map. The inner life is not linear. It is not built like a house with hallways and rooms, not a ladder you climb rung by rung. It's more like a cave, dark, echoing, sometimes terrifying, yet filled with treasures if you dare to enter. There is no GPS for grief, no calendar for healing, no checklist for becoming whole. And yet, we keep expecting one. We treat our inner world like a project. Fix it, organize it, explain it. But this is not how depth works. The soul does not speak in bullet points. It speaks in dreams, in images, in sensations that refuse translation. If you're looking for a step-by-step guide, you will miss the real miracle. Because presence is not a strategy. It is a surrender. Chapter 3. Loneliness is not what you think. There is a loneliness that comes from others leaving. And then there is a deeper loneliness, the kind that arrives even when you are surrounded by love. This is the loneliness of self-abandonment. We often think we are lonely because no one gets us, or because we haven't found our people. But what if the deeper truth is, we haven't stayed with ourselves? We leave ourselves constantly. We scroll to avoid boredom. We drink to silence anxiety. We laugh at things we don't find funny, just to avoid seeming weird. But the inner world keeps record, not in judgment, but in longing. It whispers, "Will you sit with me today? Will you remember me?" Loneliness, then, may be less about others not seeing us, and more about us not looking inward. Chapter 4. The Myth of the Fixed Self. We live under a great illusion that there is such a thing as a true self, a final version of who we are that we must find or become. But what if the self isn't fixed? What if it's fluid, like a river that never steps into the same body twice? We say things like, "I lost myself," as if you is a singular, locatable object. But the truth is, you are always becoming. And the more you try to define yourself rigidly, the more life will find a way to crack you open. Your inner world is not a statue. It is a garden. It changes with the seasons. And perhaps your task is not to chisel your identity into permanence, but to water the soil and let the mystery grow. Chapter 5. Pain as portal. Pain is not an interruption of the spiritual path. It is the path. But we resist it. We numb it, label it, try to get over it as fast as possible. But pain is sacred, not because it is desirable, but because it reveals. It strips away illusion. It burns off superficiality. It forces us to pay attention. The inner world, when in pain, is asking something of us. Listen more closely. And if we dare to listen, we often find that our pain is not a punishment, but a portal. Through it, we meet the part of us that is unbreakable, the part that knows how to survive, the part that has always been waiting to be remembered. Chapter 6. Stillness is not laziness. In a world that worships hustle, stillness is seen as laziness. But the inner world does not bloom in noise. Stillness is not stagnation. It is incubation. It is where clarity begins to breathe. We are conditioned to produce, to keep moving, to equate rest with weakness. But your soul is not a machine. It does not operate on productivity metrics. In stillness, old grief surfaces. Long-buried questions whisper again. And that's terrifying. Because we've spent our lives running from the quiet. But what if the quiet is where you begin to hear yourself again? Stillness is not absence, it's presence without performance. It is where the voice beneath all other voices finally has room to speak. Chapter 7. You cannot heal what you do not name. The wounds we avoid do not disappear. They harden. They find disguises. They reroute themselves into addictions, into reactions we can't explain. The inner world is not a vault. It's a mirror. It will keep showing you what you haven't faced until you do. But to name the wound is frightening, because it requires honesty. It requires saying, yes, that hurt me. Yes, I'm still carrying that. Yes, I'm tired of pretending I'm fine. Naming something is not dramatizing it. It's dignifying it. Because only what is named can be witnessed. And only what is witnessed can begin to be healed. Chapter 8. The Wisdom of Shadow. You've been taught to fear your darkness, to repress your anger, hide your envy, deny your ego. But the shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. Your shadow holds everything you exiled to survive. The tears you never cried, the rage you weren't allowed to feel, the parts of you labeled too much, too sensitive, too intense. You buried them to be accepted. But now they knock on the door of your psyche, begging to be let in again. To integrate the shadow is not to become destructive. It is to become whole. Because power without awareness is dangerous. But awareness of your shadow makes you conscious. And consciousness is the beginning of liberation. Chapter 9. Love begins in the self. We romanticize love. We search for it outside, in eyes, in texts, in validation. But love, real love, doesn't begin with another person. It begins in the self. This is not cliché. It's structural. If you do not know your worth, you will trade your peace for crumbs of attention. If you do not trust yourself, you will abandon your truth to avoid being abandoned. To love is to see clearly, and clarity must begin within. The more intimately you know your fears, your desires, your wounds, the less likely you are to project them onto others. Self-love is not indulgence, it is discipline, it is truth-telling, it is holding your own gaze and not looking away. Chapter 10. Silence is a language. We are so addicted to filling the air with opinions, noise, explanations. But the soul doesn't speak in paragraphs. It speaks in silence. There is a kind of knowing that doesn't require words, only presence. When we are silent long enough, something emerges. Not an answer, but an understanding. Silence is not empty. It is full of things we've avoided. And yet, it is also where intuition lives. If you want to know what's real for you, be quiet. Not forever. Just long enough to hear the voice beneath the performance. Language matters, but presence matters more. And sometimes, the most truthful thing you can say is nothing at all. Chapter 11. The Paradox of Choice. In a world flooded with options, freedom can feel like a curse. The more we have to choose from, the heavier the burden becomes. Paradoxically, the abundance of choice often leads to paralysis. The fear of making the wrong decision traps us in indecision. But is choice truly freedom if it breeds anxiety? Philosophers have long wrestled with this paradox. Real freedom isn't about endless options. It's about meaningful choices, those aligned with our deepest values. To reclaim freedom, we must learn to embrace limitation, not as restriction, but as a framework for authentic living. By choosing deliberately, we transform choice from a source of stress into a source of power. Chapter 12. The Mirror of Others. Who are we, really, when no one is watching? It's a question philosophers have pondered for centuries. The self is not born in isolation. It is shaped and reflected by others. The people around us act as mirrors, revealing parts of ourselves hidden from our own gaze. This interplay can be both illuminating and dangerous. We may lose ourselves trying to fit others' reflections, or rebel to protect our identity. Yet, true self-awareness grows from this dance between self and other. Recognizing that we are always seen through many eyes helps us accept complexity, contradictions, and the beauty of our evolving nature. Chapter 13. Embracing the Unknown. Existence is a vast ocean of mystery. The unknown is not merely a void to be feared, but a fertile ground for growth and wonder. Many seek certainty, clear answers, solid ground, but philosophy teaches us to lean into uncertainty. When we embrace the unknown, we open ourselves to transformation. Doubt becomes a guide, curiosity a compass. Life's greatest questions often have no final answers, but in the pursuit itself, we find meaning. The unknown invites us to keep exploring, questioning, and living fully. Knowing that the journey matters more than the destination